Welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show on 94.7 The Pulse. Music, interviews, news and, well, two blokes chatting. Now, here are the two blokes.
There they are, the Bon Scott version of AC/DC that thrilled us all, and doesn't matter who you are, where you are, if you're of my vintage, at some stage during your life you would have been somewhere banging your head against the wall when that was playing. And a man who now does it still because of the influence of the great band and the great man himself, James Morley. Welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show.
G'day guys, how are you?
It's very good. There's only one bloke here today, unfortunately. The other one's got COVID, so I am. You've done a little bit of preparation work with Neil Butler, but we're flying solo. But we're talking about what you're doing to promote it, Bon but Not Forgotten. Obviously, there's a lot of tribute type bands around. Is it fair to suggest you fall into the band category as a tribute band, or is there another description you'd have of what you guys do?
Nah, it's not a tribute. It's more a celebration of Bon and AC/DC. We don't do the dress-ups because, well, frankly, none of us have got the legs for it. Uniform doing that sort of thing. So, no, it's not. It's not the dress-up sort of traditional tribute sort of thing. It's just really celebrating the music and. Everything that AC/DC and Bon have got to offer, you know.
Hey, just on that exact theme, James, this question's not meant to be provocative at all, but when you lined up for this, was it a chance to take your musical skills into another area to make a quid, or are you just seriously crazy Bon Scott AC/DC fans?
No, I've been a mad fan since I got given the If You Want Blood album in about 1978. And I'd never heard of AC/DC at the time. I was living in England. I was born there. I was there till I was about 10 or so. And as soon as I heard it, I just went nuts for it. It's the best thing I ever heard in my life. So ever since then, I know every word to every song and every chord and all that sort of stuff. They've been the biggest influence on me musically. And what we do with the show, we bring in different artists every year. So we've had members from, Race Who, Screaming Jets, The Poor, a couple of international bands, had guys from Cheap Trick and Ugly Kid Joe. And so we bring them all in, and I think the prerequisite is that you have to be an absolute mad AC/DC fan to be a part of the show, as well as know your craft, well enough to emulate what Akadaka put out. So it's purely a love thing. And it started off with just doing a couple of shows 11 years ago. We started doing it, and we actually had Simon Wright and Mark Evans, who are in AC/DC, of course, did the first two shows with us. And we just loved it so much, and it was like the next year, hey, let's do it again. Yeah, no worries. So that's kind of built from there,
James, when Bon left the band, at that stage you probably weren't totally all over it, but for a person who's into music and the style of music that was delivered pre-Bon, post-Bon, was it just a really smooth transition? He was well known and well loved in the industry, but was there any loss of fan after his departure?
Look, that's a tough one. It's I remember the day listening to the radio when I heard that he passed away. It was a pretty big deal in England at the time when that happened. I think because Australians are pretty parochial when it comes to being a supporter of Bon, and a lot of people here sort of say, I don't really like much of what they did after Bon, but I think especially in Europe and America, Brian was welcomed with open arms, and a lot of people got sort of put onto AC/DC post Back in Black era in those places. They hadn't quite hit the big time as such when Bon was still with them, but obviously he laid a pretty amazing foundation to the band. So yeah, it's one of those things. It depends who you ask, but I think definitely in Australia it's a Bon fan club, so to speak.
What was interesting about them and probably different to other bands, a lot of them was all about the lead singer, just the lead singer, but AC/DC had this little character, Angus Young, who was as much loved as any one that wasn't at the forefront of the band. Do you think that he was able to assist people in making the transition post-Bon?
Yeah, look, I think Bon and Angus were probably, you've got two front people in the band as opposed to just one. Angus is a quintessential part of the show. But I think the thing with AC/DC is that it's always been about the five members of the band. It's that greater sum coming together to make this unique, amazing sound that they've got. So they all played their part. I mean, Phil Rudd, his drumming style is just unbelievable. You've got Malcolm Young, probably the best rhythm guitarist of all time, and throw Cliff in there, and you've got one hell of a machine behind Bon and Angus doing their thing. So I think everybody played their part in creating that sound. But visually, Angus was he was kind of the draw card, I suppose.
When you're doing this this show, Bon But Not Forgotten, do you individually study a lot of video and try and be really close in your copy of them, or is it a little bit loose in your own style?
No, it's all about the music. Like I say, we don't have anybody dressing up as Angus, and we don't have the singers trying to emulate Bon's stance and all that sort of stuff. It's purely done out of a love of the music, and I think for us, it's just making sure that the sounds are there. There's a particular sound that especially Malcolm Young gets. His guitar sound is just absolutely phenomenal, and it's a very unique sound as well. And that's a big part of why they sound so huge. You've got two different guitar sounds, but they gel together so well with Angus and Malcolm, and you've got to get that right to really get the power across. So it's more just making sure your parts are right, but being fans is kind of ingrained into us.
Getting back to the early days of getting that record, was it AC/DC who really dragged you into becoming a quality musician, or was that already going to happen anyway, and it just happened that the AC/DC phenomenon came with you?
No, I started out being a drummer, and I was terrible. Initially I was a big Phil Rudd fan, but no, I'd always listened to music since I was a kid. My family's pretty sort of artistic in that sense. So I grew up pre-AC/DC listening to all sorts of stuff, Sabbath, Status Quo, all that that British 70s rock sort of thing was up my alley. So I had a big sort of love for music. I wasn't necessarily able to play, but in my head I knew what was going on. I resonated with it. Like I say, so I was playing drums till I was about sort of 12, 13, and then realised I wasn't good enough to do anything professionally, so I shifted over to the bass. I got a promotion from drummer to bass player. Oh,
okay. and the bass player is always the most popular one with the ladies in the audience, we are told, historically. Would that be accurate?
I wasn't aware of that, no.
Okay, well...
It's normally the lead guitarist and the singer that get all the glory, but I'm quite happy to sit in the background and just do my thing.
Neil Butler would normally have been with me. He sent in a little message. Your admiration of Bon Scott, did you really go deep into his pre AC/DC work, because he wasn't just someone who popped up with them. He'd been doing a fair bit of work prior to with, Neil cleverly informed me of, Fraternity and the Valentines. Were you aware of that, his work there?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. That's, they're part of Australian music folklore, those bands, you know. It's, I think, once he joined AC/DC, that the bands that he'd been in probably got a bit more exposure, especially internationally, and there's quite a lot of interest from overseas people buying albums out of Australia of stuff that he'd done prior to AC/DC. But yeah, no, definitely well aware of that.
On that theme, I'm sure there's other bands somewhere in the world. I'm not right into music, but I've been staggered by the fact that not only has AC/DC continued, but it's basically the same people together for that long period of time. It's very unique. There's always change of bands, change of band names, different people come in to take different roles, but that, apart from Bond's very sad departure, they've pretty much been the same group for an astonishing amount of time.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we've only had a couple of bass players, 3 drummers, 2 singers. Malcolm, obviously, when he passed away, his nephew took over, and Angus has been in there for the long haul. So, yeah, it's kind of a rarity in the industry, I suppose. There's not too many bands. I mean, the Rolling Stones, for the most part, did the same sort of thing. But, it doesn't happen these days. But that's the beauty of AC/DC. They are so unique. It's kind of hard to replace even one band member and keep that thing that they've got, you know. So thank God that they did.
They haven't changed much in what they deliver, and to be popular across so many decades is testament to the style. It just captures all imaginations. We older folk easily go back to those days, but it's fascinating to see new teenagers coming in and starting to adopt a passion for music and immediately falling in line with not only AC/DC, but lots of that music that I'm not quite sure if you're quite in my vintage, but the stuff that we grew up with is just universally popular still.
Yeah, I mean, AC/DC, one of those few bands that sort of transcend generations. You go to a concert these days and you've got, granddad, dad and the son and potentially even the grandkids coming out. And I think the beauty of AC/DC is what they've done is, they've stuck to their guns musically. They haven't followed the trends, and people know what they're going to get. It's you go to a show, you know what show you're going to get. You probably know what songs you're going to hear, and you're just in for a good time. And that's very few bands have done that. A lot of bands tend to follow trends or try to create new trends or whatever. But they're like a comfy old pair of slippers. You put them on, they're going to keep your feet warm and be comfortable while you're watching Netflix. It's a great thing. I kind of get disappointed when a band comes out. They might put a debut album out and it's absolutely fantastic, and then on the next album a year later or so, they've gone down a slightly different path, and it's like, well, that's not why you got into the band in the first place, So I think they're just like they're an old Holden. They're reliable,
We're talking to James Morley. He's with Bon But Not Forgotten. They're coming to the Corner Hotel in Richmond, July the 3rd. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we depart. But James, you clearly don't do this all the time, but music's a big part of your life. What else do you do in your life to keep the bills getting paid?
I'm non-stop. I'm a musician 24/7, and now I'm getting older. I don't sleep that much. Once you hit 40, you only get 6 hours sleep a night. So, look, for the most part, my partner, she's an incredible singer, and she tours a lot. So I help her out with all the back end stuff, the marketing and all the other bits and pieces that people don't get to see behind the scenes. But I also play in her show as well. She's an original artist, but she also goes out and tours an eclectic range of other artists as well, from Amy Winehouse to Eva Cassidy to
a couple of classics there.
King, Linda Ronstadt, all sorts of stuff. We're actually in the middle of a WA tour at the moment. We're doing a big theatre tour which has just been absolutely phenomenal. We've got a show today down in Mandurah at the Performing Arts Centre, and it's doing Linda Ronstadt, Carole King, classic songs. Linda Ronstadt's just an amazing artist, and she's able to pull off some of those songs. So I do a lot of touring with her. I've got another show later in the year coming out called Metal Gods, which is Simon Wright, who was in AC/DC and Dio, and Ripper Owens, who was the guy that replaced Rob Halford in Judas Priest. So we're actually doing a sort of best of Judas Priest, Ronnie James Dio show with an incredible band, and that's just something we got together and had a jam night at Frankie's in Sydney one night on a day off, and we had so much fun doing it that we also looked at each other and said, hey, let's do a tour of this. So come October, we're just doing about 5 shows around Australia doing that. So yeah, lots of different things going on, but it's quite eclectic, which is good. When it comes to the AC/DC thing, like you say, we only do this once a year to celebrate Bond's birthday, and that's pretty much the only time that we get to do this. So it's something that we look forward to every year. It's not one of these things where we go out and go, oh, I've got to go and do another gig, and it becomes repetitive and boring. It's a really exciting thing that we look forward to, and it's kind of like a special event. Yeah.
So that brings you across to the East Coast from Perth for now, but does your partner get across this side of the country as well?
Yeah, we tour probably 6 months of the year. We go everywhere. We've got, like I say, today in WA. Tomorrow we head off to Queensland. Then we're back to WA for another show. We've got a couple of shows in Melbourne. Then we head up to Sydney. Then we're off to New Zealand for 3 weeks to do a tour there. So, yeah, she's constantly touring around the country.
And that is an enormous skill. The names you've mentioned that she takes us on, let's go back to that. We'll be talking about a cover or a tribute to talent like that, because just amazing, but all slightly different artists. The great skill is being able to, does she try and copy, or does she try and complement the skills of those female artists that you reeled off?
No, again, it's not a tribute thing from her point of view. It's she happens to look exactly like Linda Ronstadt when she was about 30.
Well, she's looking all right then, because she was one of my favourites in the 70s.
Yeah. I'm doing all right.
Yeah, you're doing very well.
It's one of those things where we've got an incredible band. We're actually touring with a 12-piece band at the moment of some of the most incredible musos. So she gets up and she just picks the songs that she loves and that the audience loves and just sings them. She has the ability to sing them incredibly well, but she doesn't dress up. She doesn't try to be them or anything like that. It's basically just the same for me. It's just celebrating the music that we love.
Yeah.
She's lucky. She's been blessed with an incredible voice.
And where might we see her set a couple of Melbourne shows while we're pumping up your show? We might as well give her a plug. How can people find out about your partner's tour?
I think the only Melbourne shows that we've got coming up for her at the end of this month. So I think one's at Musicland up there in Faulkner, and the other one's at the old Caravan Club, which is the Oakley Carnegie RSL.
And what is her name?
Her name's Bloom.
Bloom.
That's her stage name. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm familiar with her work. I reckon we have promoted her at some other stage on another show. So that's a bit of a coincidence. Let's get back to you guys. Club Hotel, Richmond, July the 3rd. Is it a daytime show or a nighttime show?
Corner Hotel. Yeah.
Corners. Yeah.
It's a matinee show. So I think doors open somewhere around 2:00. So it's all the band members getting up early to do a day show. That's in the morning.
Oh dear, something a little bit different. I don't know. Bon Scott wouldn't have lined up to too many midday shows, would he?
Oh, I don't know. Back in the day, back in the mid-70s, ACDC were doing sometimes 2 to 3 shows a day, and making their $50 a week and doing the hard yards. So no, certainly back in the old days, those guys were one of the hardest working bands in the country.
Well, James, I hope you're getting a bit better than $60 a day for what you do. And if AC/DC fans are listening and want to get down and catch this on July the 3rd, Corner Hotel in Richmond, let's aim for a 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock. Get there, get settled, have a couple of ales and get yourself ready for some classic Australian rock and roll, delivered in with great respect and admiration rather than it being a cover or a copy. I think that's a fair way to describe it. James, thank you for your time. Best wishes for your tour and your partner Bloom's tours around this side of the world as well. We'll keep an eye out for her as well, but appreciate your time this morning.
No worries. Thanks very much, mate. Appreciate it.
Good on you. James Morley, Bon but not forgotten.